Hey y'all, it's Heel Heat time.
Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles and this is an episode of It Came From the Network. Now on It Came From the Network, we review the weird, the wild, the wacky, sometimes just downright bad and campy stuff you can find on the WWE Network. This one came as a recommendation from one of our friends since it's WrestleMania season. At the time of taping, we're about a week out from WrestleMania. We're going to review WWF Wrestlemania XII. With that being said, thank you, Ryan. Ryan Hadley was the friend that recommended this. Let's jump right into it. First match of the night, we get Big Van Vader, Owen Hart, and the British Bulldog with James E. Cornette versus Yokozuna, Jake the Snake Roberts, and Ahmed Johnson. This is kind of a weird match because you kind of associate Yoko with Cornette and with Fuji during his WWF run. But there was a little while where he went face before they let him go that he was against them. The stipulation is if Yokozuna's team wins, he gets 5 minutes alone with Cornette, which is a classic stipulation. Unfortunately, they did not pick up the win. Vader, Owen, and the Bulldog pick up the win. I'm going to give this match a 3 out of 5, 5 being the best and 1 being the worst. I'm going to give this match a 3. I enjoyed it. It was a good opener, even though it might have been weird. Out of the 6 guys, I really enjoyed 5 of them. Ahmed Johnson, I've never really been a fan of, but they kind of hid his deficiencies in this match, so it kind of made up for it. Now on to the next match, we have the infamous backlot brawl of Roddy Piper versus Goldust, which starts off on the backlot of Hollywood movie. They fight back and forth with not a garden hose, a fire hose, and then also a baseball bat. Goldust starts to drive off in his golden Cadillac. Piper chases him in a white Bronco, which they cut away. And several times between this and when they come back during the night, they go back to the car chasing each other, which they took the O.J. Simpson car chase scene. Which, if you were born, I would say after probably 1985, you may have heard of it. But for those of us that are born before 85, we remember that night. We remember the OJ scene. It was on every channel on TV. Everybody was watching it. Everybody was wanting to see what would happen with OJ when he was basically led the police on a slow speed chase in a white Bronco, hence Piper in the white Bronco. Moving on from that, like I said before, with the weirdness of the time period with Yokozuna being a face, here was another weirdly timed match. Stone Cold Steve Austin, he was already Stone Cold, but he was still the $1 Million champion with Ted DiBiase, was wrestling Savio Vega. This was an okay match. To be perfectly honest, I seen better between the two. Savio I think is a very underrated worker. Austin is Austin. This was before he had all the knee and neck problems. He had some, but not as much as he would later on. Austin picks up the win with the $1 Million Dream. A weird transition. He started to transition already away from the ringmaster, but he wasn't fully out of that gimmick and into the Stone Cold gimmick that we would see that would dominate pro wrestling. But it was a weird, like I said, a weird time and a weird space for this. I'm going to give this match a 2 out of 5. Like I said, Austin picked up the win. I'd probably rank it higher if I didn't see better matches between the two of them. To me, this is probably one of the worst matches these two guys put on with each other. And it couldn't have been at a higher stage. Now, the next match of the night is what saves that from being the worst match on the card. Hunter Hearst Helmsley with the debuting Sable. At this time, he had kind of a rotating valet situation, and he brought in Sable to debut at WrestleMania, which is really cool if you think about it. I had forgot that this is where he debuted her as his valet, so it was kind of a cool little thing for me to find again. And he would go up against the returning Ultimate Warrior. What can I say about this match? The early first 30 seconds are dominated by Helmsley. He hits the pedigree. Warrior pops right up from the pedigree and goes into his Warrior offense. The whole match, I think, is less than 2 minutes. But Warrior, of course, picks up the win. This match to me was bad on a lot of levels. First of all, I'm not a fan of Ultimate Warriors. I never liked his ring style. He had some good matches, mostly WrestleMania 6 against Hogan. His matches with Savage, I thought, were pretty good. Even his match with Slaughter, I thought, was pretty awesome. But to me, unless he was in there with another guy that could pull a great match out of him, he never really had the talent to do it on his own. And this was proof of it. This was a terrible match. Luckily, it didn't do as much harm to Hunter Hearst Helmsley as it could have. This could have been the nail in his coffin. His career could have ended. He could have been one of those "do you remember" guys. Like, do you remember Hunter Hearst Helmsley? Along the lines of, do you remember Duke the Dumpster Droese? Or Abe Knuckleball Schwartz? Or some of those other guys of the era. Luckily, his talent shined through. Luckily, he was able to bounce back from this and become, in the next decade, one of the best wrestlers in the world. Now, coming off of that, we had another cool debut. We had Todd Pettingill interviewing Wildman Mark Marrow. Pettingill calls him Mark Mara, which is kind of a weird thing that he mispronounced his real name. It was interesting to see two debuts at WrestleMania back-to-back. When's the last time you've seen a WrestleMania debut? I know we have one coming up with Ronda Rousey and her in-ring debut, but we're talking about this is the first time Sable and Mark Mara were both seen on WWE, period, or WWF at the time. And Mark Mara was coming off of being Johnny B. Bad in WCW. During the interview, we see Hunter and Sable walk to the back. A little bit of a tussle gets involved there. Funny thing is, Sable and Mara were happily married at this time. It's neat to see them on the opposite sides. It's cool because I know the Mark Mara and Hunter Hearst Helmsley feud was actually a pretty decent feud for the time. So this was the seed for that feud. So it was cool to see this start up on WrestleMania. Like I said, you don't really see the beginnings of feud and debuts on WrestleMania, so it was a cool little surprise. Next up, we have The Undertaker versus Big Daddy Cool Diesel. This match I thoroughly enjoyed. I've mentioned before how prior to 1996, I thought The Undertaker kind of was more gimmick than wrestler, and don't get me wrong, he had a great gimmick. He was more of the undead zombie character who would just get into his offense and that'd be it. In the year 96, which is this year, the year of this pay-per-view, he transitioned more and added more depth to his character, became a better wrestler, and not that he didn't always have that in him, he just added it to the character, I believe. And it was better for it. We had a really good match between him and Diesel. A lot of people don't think of Kevin Nash as a great worker, but he's a great storyteller, and he works well with his emotions. He knows how to bring emotion out of you, whether it's hatred or love or anger or sadness. He knows how to pull that out of you. And this match was no exception. I thought they had a really good match. Taker obviously wins because we know the streak goes on after this. I'm going to give this match a 4 out of 5 stars. Oh, and the Hunter versus Warrior, that's a 0, by the way. If I didn't mention, I don't believe I did. A 0-star versus Hunter and Warrior. 4 stars for this match. I thoroughly enjoyed this. It's kind of what I would say is a hidden gem, in my opinion. Especially if you're a fan of either Guy Taker or Diesel. I think you should go back and watch this if you haven't seen it before. Next up, we have Piper and Goldust finally make it back to the arena. They fight into the ring. Piper gets the upper hand, takes off Goldust's singlet, and Goldust is wearing women's lingerie. Piper kisses him, proceeds to knee him in the man's nether regions a few times. Goldust rolls out of the ring and takes a powder to the back. So I guess Piper wins. I don't know. It's hard to say. They played his music. He looked like he won, so was that how you win the backlap brawl, I guess? I don't know. All in all, though, with all of the segments with Piper and Goldust, it was thoroughly entertaining. They tried something different, which kudos to them. WWF at the time wasn't about doing crazy stuff like this. That was more WCW's thing with like the Tower of Doom and the fight between actually Goldust, Dustin Rhodes, and Blacktop Bully on the back of the semi. So kudos to WWF for going outside of their box for this match. It wasn't the best technical match of all time, but it was a fun spectacle with two great characters who made it interesting. I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 5. I thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I love Goldust and I love Roddy Piper, so what wasn't there to like? And last but not least, the match that this show is most known for, Bret the Hitman Hart versus the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels in an Iron Man match. 60 minutes, most pinfalls or submissions, most wins basically, wins the match. I could go on a 20-minute rampage about how great this was and how innovative and how this specific match inspired a whole generation of wrestlers, but you've heard all of that before. You've heard the wrestlers of this generation say how this is their favorite match. This is a match that got them into wrestling. This is one of the greatest matches in WrestleMania history. I would say it's right up there in the top 5, easily up there with Steamboat and Savage, the two Michaels and Undertaker matches, the End of the Era match, the TLC matches. This match, you could put it up against any match in WrestleMania history, and it holds its weight. It's that good of a match. It's like I said, it's easily one of the top 5 best matches in WrestleMania history. Might even be the best match in WrestleMania history. This is about the 10th time I've watched the match fully, and I thoroughly enjoyed it from beginning to end. We get at the end of the 60 minutes, there's no falls. It's presumed to be a draw. Bret Hart starts walking off. Gorilla Monsoon, who was earlier in the night named the president of the WWE, says no, we're going to have this a sudden death match. Bret comes back to the ring. Bret and Shawn. Bret seems visibly frustrated by the decision. Shawn uses that to his advantage, uses Bret's frustration to his advantage, pulls out the win. The boyhood dream comes true, as famously Mr. Vince McMahon would say. Shawn Michaels wins his first WWF Championship. We go off the air on a really high note. I'm giving this match a 5 out of 5. Like I said, I could talk for hours about how great this match was. And if you haven't seen it yet, you really need to see it. It's probably, like I said, one of the top 5 WrestleMania matches of all time. That being said, you've heard my individual ratings for the show. Let's go into the ratings for the whole thing. Now, we have a scale here on Heel Heat of a 1 to 5 scale, 5 being the best, 1 being the worst. 5 is a Kane, 4 is a Goldust, 3 is a Hurricane, 2 is a Dungeon of Doom, and 1 is a Gobbledygooker. I'm giving this show a 4, a Goldust. Very solid show. the things that carry it, in my opinion, the Backlot Brawl is a good spectacle match. Diesel and Undertaker I really enjoyed. Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, who cannot enjoy that? If you're not a wrestling fan, if you don't enjoy that match, I don't know why you watch wrestling if that's not something you can enjoy. It still holds up today. A couple disappointments on the show that kept this from being a 5. Austin and Savio Vega, Hunter Hearst Helmsley and the Ultimate Warrior. Other than that, this was a really solid show. A lot of good matches. 2 matches I would consider great matches. So, I'd recommend going and check out WrestleMania 12 if you haven't already, especially if you're a fan of guys like Diesel, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Goldust, Bret Hart, Owen Hart, the British Bulldog, all those guys of this era, and seeing them in or as close to their prime as they were going to be. Now, a lot of people have said that this is a one-match show. I don't think it is. I think, like I said, at the very least, watch Taker and Diesel as well as this. But I think you'd enjoy watching this whole way through. Even the bad matches, kind of, with what they're surrounded by, it kind of doesn't take away from the fact that they're bad, but it kind of masks it a little bit. All in all, basically that's all I have to say on this. Thank you again, Ryan, for recommending this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fit in the 3rd recommendation before WrestleMania. If not, it's going to be on the books to be done soon. But I'm going to try. I have a lot of things planned this week, so if I get a little bit of time to fit it in and watch it again, I'll get it on here. If not, just know that it's coming soon. With all that being said, please hit like if you like this, share the video. Let me know in the comments what you think, if you've seen this before. If you're going back for the first time and you watch this, come back and tell me what you thought of the video, thought of the matches, what you thought of the show altogether. And let me know. And make sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. All that being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been another episode of It Came From the Network.